Hey everyone. As was widely expected, the Federal Reserve cut the overnight rate by 25 basis points last week. And Wall Street still expects additional cuts in October, December, and into 2026. For commercial real estate investors, though, the big question will be how the 10-year Treasury behaves going forward. Despite the reduction of the overnight rate, it's still possible that the 10-year Treasury could rise like it did last year. And rising rates could be exacerbated by additional Treasury issuance over the next 3 months as the U.S. government raises capital to pay its bills. That said, if the 10-year Treasury remains range-bound near 4%, that would likely bolster commercial real estate investment activity. Debt capital liquidity remains healthy with multiple lenders active in the market, and lender spreads have not widened thus far. So rates are comparatively low right now, and investors have a window to lock in their financing. Rates could stay down for a while, or perhaps even go down more. You never know for sure. Now, we also need to consider, as Chairman Powell acknowledged in his press conference following the rate cut, a significant reason to cut rates is because the employment market is weakening. And for commercial real estate investors, that's something we absolutely need to take into consideration. Personally, I don't think we're at risk of a severe recession. If we do enter a downturn, it will most likely be similar to the recession of 2001, which was relatively mild. And if growth is sustained, or we enter a mild economic downturn, then commercial real estate space demand should remain positive. In fact, for office properties, an employment market slowdown could actually bolster office space demand as more companies pursue return to office strategies. On a national level, office space absorption has been positive for the last 5 quarters. Now, that doesn't affect every market the same, but there has certainly been a shift in space demand momentum in more than half of the major metros across the US. For retail, the growth in consumption has continued despite the imposition of tariffs and the signs of a weakening labor market. Inflation-adjusted core retail sales are up 2.2% compared to last year, with spending on apparel, restaurants, and e-commerce delivering the most gains. And that reiterates the strength of U.S. consumers. If you look at household debt as a percentage of income, it's near its lowest level in over 20 years. In addition, if you look at total savings, including money market funds, they're up 4.2% from last year, and they're very close to the peak level set in 2021 as stimulus checks were being issued and many states were still in the pandemic lockdown. So even though there are signs of potential economic weakening, household balance sheets remain strong. And that suggests retail consumption could continue to support retail space demand even if the US economy slows. In addition, strong e-commerce sales in conjunction with core retail sales gains will reinforce industrial space demand. Now, when I look at multifamily housing demand, it could temper a bit in the coming quarters. That said, over the last 12 months, we've had the strongest apartment absorption on record going back 35 years. But if the 10-year Treasury stays near 4%, single-family mortgage rates could come down, unlocking more first-time home buyers. So there could be some tenant loss to homeownership in the coming quarters, but I don't think it would be sufficient to dampen multifamily demand substantively. The weakening employment market probably poses a greater risk to apartment demand, especially with the uptick in the unemployment rate of people in the prime renter ages of 20 to 24 years old. Unemployment for that age cohort was at its 50-year low in April of 2023 at 5.5%. But since then, it has risen to 9.2% last month. That rise in the unemployment rate of young adults could weigh on household formations and rental housing demand over the coming year. As a result, apartment absorption could slow. But the good news is that apartment construction is also slowing. So apartment supply and demand could remain in balance, restraining vacancy risk. Now, taking all of that into consideration, we need to carefully watch interest rates and the employment market over the next few months. There are numerous economic forces in play that could significantly shift the trends one way or the other. which is why investors always need to keep their eyes on the horizon.